All right, let's talk about Japanese grammar. For a lot of new learners, it feels like this massive, impossible wall. But today, we're going to change that. Our goal is to take that chaotic mess of rules you're imagining and show you that it's actually a super logical, kind of elegant system of building blocks. So let's get started.
You know, if you've ever stared at a Japanese sentence and just felt completely lost, you are definitely not alone. It's such a common feeling. The word order seems all backwards, you've got these little words floating around, it can honestly feel like you're trying to crack a secret code.
But what if I told you it's not a code at all? It's a blueprint. Every single piece has a very specific job. So in this explainer, we're going to take the language apart piece by piece, looking at some key ideas from the first few chapters of the Genki textbooks, and show you exactly how it all fits together.
So where do we start? Well, we start at the very beginning with the absolute foundation. Seriously, this one simple pattern is the bedrock that almost all of Japanese grammar is built on.
This is it. X, Y, des. This little formula is your key. For example, watashi wa gakusei desu. Watashi is X, that's our topic, I. Gakusei is Y, the description, student. And des just makes it a polite statement. So, as for me, I am a student. You get this down, and you've basically mastered the core of thousands and thousands of Japanese sentences.
Okay, so let's build on that. Now we're going to talk about what is probably the biggest, and maybe weirdest, new concept for English speakers: particles. The absolute best way to think about them is like little GPS tags that you stick on a word to tell everyone its exact role in the sentence.
Just look at these guys. These tiny little words do all the heavy lifting. So wa, it announces the topic we're talking about. The one that looks like wo is actually pronounced o, and it points to the thing getting verbed. And de tells you where an action is happening. Each one is a tiny, super efficient signpost.
And this right here shows the huge difference. In English, word order is everything, right? I drink coffee is totally different from coffee drinks me. But in Japanese, the particles are what matter. In watashi wa kohihi o nomimasu, the word for coffee has that o tag, so we know it's the thing being drunk, no matter where you put it. This gives the language this incredible flexibility that English just doesn't have.
All right, so we have our nouns, and we know their jobs because of particles. Now, we need some action. In Japanese, the verb is the engine of the sentence, and it has one super important rule. It pretty much always comes at the very end.
And here's the best part. The Genki system shows us that basically every verb you'll ever meet falls into one of two predictable groups: ru verbs or u verbs. And each group has its own really clear, consistent rules for how you change them. So if you learn the pattern for one, you can do it for hundreds of others. It's a system.
Now, if you're going to focus on learning one verb form, make it this one. The te form is like the Swiss Army knife of Japanese grammar. It's a special ending you put on a verb that lets you link ideas, make requests, describe what's happening right now. It does so much. It is incredibly useful. I mean, look at all this. You can use the te form to say, I woke up and I studied. You can use it to politely ask someone, please read this, or to ask for permission, or to describe something that's happening right now, like I am studying. You can even use it to explain why something happened. This one form just unlocks a whole new level of expression.
Okay, we've got nouns, particles, verbs. Now let's add some color, some description. And guess what? Adjectives in Japanese also follow a really clean systematic pattern. There are basically just two types you need to worry about.
It really is this simple. If an adjective ends with that I sound, like kawaii, it's an I adjective. If it needs a little na to connect to a noun, like genki na, it's a na adjective. And just like the verbs, each type has its own simple, predictable rules for how they change. No surprises.
So, we've looked at the core blueprint: particles, verbs, and adjectives. They all seem pretty simple on their own, right? Okay, now for the really cool part. Let's see how we can snap these simple blocks together to build a surprisingly complex sentence.
Whoa, okay, take a look at this. At first glance, that looks pretty intimidating, right? It seems long and complicated, but I promise you, it is built entirely out of the pieces we've just talked about. Let's tear it down.
So the trick is to just find the familiar bits. Look at this first chunk. Asoko de hono o yondeiru. Hey, we know those. We see the location particle de for over there, and we see the verb yondeiru. That's the te form for is reading. Easy enough.
Now here's one of the awesome things about Japanese. You can take that whole little action phrase, reading a book over there, and just stick it right in front of a noun to describe it.
So that whole chunk is just describing the noun gakusei, which means student. It creates one big idea, the student who is reading a book over there.
And here it is, the aha moment. That entire long descriptive phrase, the student who is reading a book over there, that whole thing just becomes X in our original blueprint. So the sentence is just, as for the student reading over there, she is Michiko-san. See? It's not some new scary grammar rule. It's the exact same simple blueprint we started with. We just used a bigger building block for X. So what's the big takeaway here? The journey into learning Japanese grammar, it's not about memorizing a million different rules. It's about seeing the system underneath it all.
So here's your mental map. First, you master that core X is Y blueprint. Then, you get comfortable using particles to assign jobs to your words. After that, you learn the predictable patterns for verbs and adjectives, and then you just start combining those simple blocks to build bigger and more interesting ideas.
And that's really the most important thing to remember. Japanese grammar isn't a random mess of rules you have to memorize. It is a logical, elegant system of building blocks. And once you see it that way, it stops being scary and it actually starts being, well, kind of fun.
So, now that you've got the blueprint, the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it? What's the first thing you want to say with these powerful new tools?